My brother's wedding planner called. Your family canceled your invite, but wants to keep the $65,000 deposit you paid. I said, cancel the whole wedding. She froze. But sir, you're not the groom. No, but I own the venue, the catering service, and the hotel they reserved for guests. I never thought I'd live to see the day my own brother, the one who swore we'd always have each other, would uninvite me from his wedding and still expect me to pay for it. But that's exactly what happened, and it nearly shattered me, until I finally decided enough was enough. My name is Natalie Warren, and I'm 34 years old. I own Sapphire Luxury Hotels and Elite Catering. My brother, James, is 2 years older than me, and for most of our lives, he was my rock. We survived our parents' messy divorce, a period filled with slammed doors and icy silence. Our dad, Robert, was a workaholic accountant, and our mom, Linda, felt neglected. Neither of them really saw how much it impacted us. James and I ended up relying on each other, counting coins on our bedroom floor and pooling our meager earnings from after-school jobs just to buy groceries when Mom was short on cash. We only have each other, Nat, James would say, no matter what happens, I will always have your back. That promise was our lifeline. He was my biggest cheerleader when I went to college for hospitality management. He'd send me money from his construction job to help with textbooks and living expenses. I worked hard, starting at a front desk and climbing my way up to director of operations by 27. Then I took a massive leap, bought a struggling historic hotel, and poured every ounce of myself into it. James was there, too, using his connections to find contractors and even bringing his crew on weekends to help out for free. Consider it an investment in our future, he'd wink. The Sapphire Grand flourished, and soon I had 5 luxury hotels and my own catering company. James celebrated every milestone, commiserated through every setback. He even drove 3 hours in the middle of the night when a pipe burst at one of my hotels. We were a team. Our parents, of course, noticed our success. Dad suddenly wanted to reconnect, inviting us to expensive dinners. Mom became strangely competitive. Neither of them acknowledged that we'd succeeded despite their absence, not because of their support. Then, Melissa Blake entered the picture. James met her at a charity golf tournament my catering company was working. She was beautiful, polished, and oozed old money, her father owning a chain of car dealerships, her mother on prestigious cultural boards. From the start, something felt off. She spoke to my staff with a dismissive tone. When James introduced us, her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, you're the little sister who works in hotels." "How quaint," she said, looking around as if searching for someone more important. James was utterly smitten. He spent all his free time with her. Suddenly, he was talking about the right people and our kind of establishment, trading his reliable pickup for a luxury SUV he could barely afford. Our weekly sibling dinners became rare occurrences. When we did get together, Melissa was always there, checking her watch, sighing loudly whenever we talked about our childhood. Melissa and her mother, Eleanor, made no secret of their disdain for me. At James's birthday dinner, Eleanor asked pointed questions about my little hotel business, clearly disappointed when I explained the scale of my operations. "Well, I suppose anyone can succeed in America these days," she said with a tight smile. "Though there is a difference between new money and established families." Melissa nodded in agreement. "It must be exhausting working in service. All those complaints and dirty rooms," she shuddered delicately. I tried to explain I was the owner, not a housekeeper, but James cut me off. "Natalie has always been a hard worker," he said, almost apologetically. "She will probably sell the business once she settles down and starts a family." It stung. He knew my passion for my career. In that moment, I felt him slipping away. Despite the growing distance, I still loved him fiercely. I told myself it was just a phase. Surely the brother who held my hand at crosswalks was still in there somewhere. One crisp autumn evening, James called, his voice bubbling with excitement. She said yes, Nat. Melissa agreed to marry me. His happiness was contagious, and I found myself genuinely thrilled for him, despite my deep reservations about Melissa. "That's wonderful news, James. Tell me everything." I curled up on my sofa, ready for the romantic details. He recounted an elaborate proposal at the Blake family's Hamptons summer home. Private chef, string quartet, thousands of rose petals, a 4-carat diamond ring that cost him 6 months of savings. It sounds perfect, I said, ignoring the knot in my stomach. This extravagance was so unlike the practical brother I knew. He then admitted the venues Eleanor suggested were either booked or way over budget. He was stressed. What about the Sapphire Grand? I suggested. As the owner's brother, you'd get preferential booking and significant discounts. 3 days later, he called back. Melissa would consider it, but wanted to see it and was concerned about the catering. Tell her Elite Catering has 2 Michelin-trained chefs on staff and can create any menu she desires, I said, trying to hide my irritation. The tour was tense. Melissa and Eleanor critiqued everything. When Eleanor asked if I'd reupholster the ballroom chairs and replace the draperies because the color scheme was all wrong, I was floored. I offered chair covers, but explained reupholstery was costly and unnecessary. Melissa pursed her lips. James shot me a pleading look, that old childhood plea to keep the peace. So I took a deep breath, smiled, and said, "Why don't you show me your Pinterest board? I'm sure we can find creative solutions." That concession opened the floodgates. Her dream wedding was straight out of a royal ceremony. Custom lighting, imported flowers, a champagne fountain, a 10-tier cake. The preliminary estimate made James go pale, well over $100,000, even with my owner's discount. That's when I made a decision that would change everything. As my gift to you both, I said, I'd like to cover the venue and catering deposit. $65,000 toward your special day. James's eyes widened, protesting it was too generous. But Melissa and Eleanor exchanged glances. That would be lovely, Melissa said quickly. We accept your generous offer. Even for me, $65,000 was a significant sum. But I told myself it was worth it to support my brother and build a bridge with this new family. The planning began immediately. Melissa hired an exclusive wedding planner, Victoria Hayes. I expected to be included, given my financial contribution and ownership, but I was quickly mistaken. Melissa scheduled tastings without inviting me. Victoria sent emails about architectural changes, never copying me. When I asked James, he seemed uncomfortable. Melissa just wants to make sure everything is perfect, he explained. She feels there might be a conflict of interest if you're too involved since it's your business. I swallowed my hurt. But it got harder. Melissa and Eleanor were incredibly demanding. They insisted my staff remove a historic chandelier, demanded 15 different sample menus, and canceled appointments with my overworked coordinator at the last minute. Through it all, I maintained my professionalism. I wanted this wedding to be perfect for James. My loyal staff strained under the demands, but they did their best. You're a saint, Anthony, my hotel manager, told me after one particularly difficult meeting. If she weren't your future family, I would have shown her the door weeks ago. The $65,000 deposit was processed 6 months before the wedding. As the wedding date approached, I expected my invitation. 3 months out, nothing. I casually mentioned it to James. Oh, the invitations went out last week, he said vaguely. Melissa handled the guest list. I'm sure yours is on the way. Another month passed. Still no invitation. Unease grew in my stomach. The first truly alarming sign came from my cousin, Dana, who called to gush about her gorgeous invitation, complete with gold foil and a handwritten note from Melissa. My heart sank. I had neither. Other family members confirmed they'd received theirs weeks ago. That evening, I called James. Is there something I should know about the wedding? I asked, my voice trembling. Everyone else seems to have received their invitations. A long pause. Melissa has been handling the guest list, he finally said. I'll check with her and get back to you. 3 days later, silence. I texted him. Need to finalize my attendance details. Should I bring a +1? What color dress? His response was vague, still working out some details. We'll let you know soon. Around the same time, I noticed other patterns. The bridal shower had happened without me. Photos of their engagement shoot appeared on social media, again, without me. During a routine check-in with my staff, I learned Melissa requested to review the seating chart. Curious, I asked to see it. My name was nowhere to be found. There must be a mistake, I told my coordinator. I'm the groom's sister. She looked uncomfortable. Miss Blake was very specific about the seating arrangements. She personally reviewed each name multiple times. The situation exploded a month before the wedding, at a family dinner organized by our parents. It was the first time they'd been in the same room in years. The tension was palpable. Melissa whispered to her mother, shooting glances at me. When wedding details came up, they spoke vaguely, changing the subject if I asked a direct question. During the main course, Eleanor dropped a bombshell. It is so important to have the right atmosphere at a wedding, she said, swirling her wine. The proper guests, the right connections. A wedding is not just a celebration. It is a statement about your place in society. Melissa nodded, looking directly at me. Some people simply do not understand the social implications of a high-profile event. Running hotels is one thing, but appreciating true elegance is quite another. My father, usually oblivious, laughed uncomfortably. Natalie understands elegance just fine. Her hotels are top-rated in the luxury category. Eleanor's smile didn't reach her eyes. Yes, but there is a difference between serving the elite and being one of them. Is there not? The implication was clear. In their eyes, I was the help, not an equal. I looked at James, expecting him to defend me, but he was studying his plate, avoiding eye contact. My mother, sensing my distress, tried to change the subject. Natalie has been so generous with her contribution to the wedding. The venue looks absolutely stunning. Melissa's response was swift and cutting. Yes, the financial arrangement has been helpful, though we have had to make substantial upgrades to bring the space up to standard. I felt as if I'd been slapped. My flagship hotel, the jewel of my business, was being called substandard by a woman who had never worked a day in her life. The Sapphire Grand is a 5-star establishment, I said evenly. We host diplomats, celebrities, and yes, society weddings on a regular basis. Of course you do, dear. Eleanor patted my hand condescendingly. And we appreciate your establishment's effort to accommodate our vision. After dinner, I tried to speak to James privately, but Melissa intercepted us, pulling him away. The look she gave me was triumphant. Later that week, a friend who worked at Melissa's country club called me. She'd overheard Melissa laughing with her bridesmaids about the hotel girl who thought she was invited to the wedding. She actually thinks she will be sitting at the family table, Melissa had reportedly said. As if we would want someone like her front and center in the photos, but we need to keep her happy until the big day since she controls the venue. Another bridesmaid asked about the $65,000. Melissa's response chilled me to the bone. That money is already spent. What is she going to do? Ask for it back? Besides, James says she is loaded. She will get over it. I called James that evening, confronting him directly. Am I invited to your wedding or not? I asked bluntly. Because from what I'm hearing, Melissa has other ideas. He sighed heavily. Nat, it's complicated. Melissa and her mother have very specific ideas about the guest list. They're concerned about maintaining a certain atmosphere. An atmosphere that doesn't include your only sister? The sister who gave you $65,000 toward this wedding. My voice cracked with emotion. You don't understand the pressure I'm under, he said defensively. Melissa's family moves in important circles. This wedding could open doors for both of us. Since when do you care about important circles? I demanded. What happened to the brother who used to say we only needed each other? People grow up, Natalie. They change. Maybe you should try it sometime instead of holding on to the past. His words were like daggers to my heart. Is that Melissa talking or you? I asked quietly. This conversation is not productive, he said, his voice cold. I need to go. Melissa and I have an appointment with the florist. I hung up, a deep sense of loss washing over me. The brother I knew was slipping away. Still, I clung to hope. I sent James a heartfelt email, reminding him of our past, expressing my hurt, and assuring him I'd still ensure the wedding was perfect, because that's what family did. His response was brief and formal. Thank you for your understanding. I will speak with Melissa about the guest list situation. Days passed. No communication. The wedding was 1 week away. I started to accept I might not attend my own brother's ceremony. Then came the phone call that changed everything. It was a Tuesday afternoon. An unfamiliar number. I answered. "Hello, is this Natalie Warren?" A professional female voice inquired. "Yes, speaking," I replied, stepping out of my budget meeting. "This is Victoria Hayes, the wedding planner for the Warren Blake ceremony scheduled at the Sapphire Grand next Saturday. I am calling regarding your deposit payment of $65,000. My heart skipped a beat. "Yes, is there an issue?" "Not exactly," Victoria hesitated. "I have been instructed by the family to inform you that your invitation to the wedding has been canceled. However, they would like to retain the deposit you provided." The world seemed to stop. I gripped the hallway wall. "Excuse me." Victoria cleared her throat. "The family has decided to revise the guest list. Your attendance is no longer required. However, they wish to keep the venue and catering arrangements as planned, utilizing the deposit you already paid." "Which family?" I asked, barely above a whisper. "Who exactly made this decision?" "Miss Blake and her mother provided the instruction," Victoria replied. "I was told that Mr. Warren is aware and has agreed to the arrangement. James had agreed to uninvite me, but keep my $65,000. My own brother. The same brother who once gave me half his sandwich, who held my hand at our grandmother's funeral and promised we'd always have each other. May I ask why?" I managed, fighting to keep my voice steady. Victoria paused. "I was informed that your presence might distract from the event's intended atmosphere. Miss Blake felt that the family dynamics might create tension on her special day." "Family dynamics?" I repeated incredulously. "I am his sister, his only sibling." Victoria continued, sounding like she was reading from a script. "Miss Blake also mentioned something about your professional connection to the venue, potentially confusing guests about your role. She specifically mentioned concerns about you being perceived as staff rather than family given your ownership of the establishment." The cruelty of that statement knocked the wind out of me. After years of hard work building my business from nothing, my success was being used against me. I was too associated with service industry work to be worthy of attending my brother's wedding. "Did James say this?" I asked, needing to know if these were his words or Melissa's. "I have not spoken directly with Mr. Warren about this matter," Victoria admitted. "The instruction came from Ms. Blake, but she assured me that Mr. Warren was in agreement." I closed my eyes, processing the betrayal and the $65,000. "They expect to keep that money while excluding me from the event?" "Yes," Victoria confirmed, sounding increasingly uncomfortable. "The deposit is considered non-refundable at this point, as stated in the contract. Miss Blake mentioned that you had presented it as a gift not contingent on your attendance." A wave of anger washed over me, clearing away the shock and hurt. This was beyond inconsiderate. It was calculating. It was cruel. They had used me for my venue, my catering, and my money, all while planning to exclude me. "Miss Warren, are you still there?" Victoria asked. "Yes," I said, my voice suddenly calm and clear. "I want to confirm that I understand correctly. The bride and her mother have decided I am not welcome at my brother's wedding despite my significant financial contribution and the fact that the event is being held at my property, and my brother has apparently agreed to this arrangement." "That is my understanding." "Yes," Victoria replied cautiously. I took a deep breath. "Victoria, I appreciate you calling me directly. I am guessing you did not know that I am the owner of the Sapphire Grand and Elite Catering." There was a sharp intake of breath. I was not aware of that connection. Miss Blake introduced you only as Mr. Warren's sister who had contributed to the wedding fund." "I see," I said, a plan already forming. "In that case, I have a message I would like you to deliver to Miss Blake and my brother." "Of course," Victoria replied, her professional demeanor slipping. "Please tell them that I said to cancel the entire wedding." Victoria gasped. "But Miss Warren, you cannot. You are not the bride or groom. You do not have the authority to cancel the event." "No," I agreed. "But I own the venue, the catering company, and the hotel chain they booked for out-of-town guests. And according to Section 12 of the contract they signed, I reserve the right to cancel any event that violates our company's core values, which include respect and integrity." The silence was deafening. But the deposits, the guests, Everything is arranged, Victoria stammered. Yes, it is unfortunate timing, I said coolly. Please inform Miss Blake and my brother that unless I receive a formal apology and invitation to the wedding by 5 p.m. today, the Sapphire Grand will no longer be available for their event. All deposits will be forfeited as per the cancellation policy they agreed to. This is highly irregular, Victoria protested. I have never encountered such a situation in my career. Neither have I admitted. But then, I have never been uninvited from my brother's wedding while being expected to fund it either. Please deliver my message promptly. I ended the call, heart pounding. Part of me couldn't believe what I'd just done. Another part knew it was long overdue. For too long, I had allowed Melissa and her family to treat me with disrespect. For too long, I had watched my brother transform. The time for passivity was over. If James wanted to choose Melissa's elitist values over our lifelong bond, that was his right. But he wouldn't do it in my venue, with my money, while excluding me. Within minutes, my phone blew up. James. Then Melissa. Then Eleanor. I ignored them all, returning to my meeting with a serene smile that confused my team. Is everything all right? Anthony asked. Actually, yes, I replied. I think everything is finally becoming very clear. By 4:30 that afternoon, my office phone, cell, and email were flooded. Victoria had delivered my ultimatum. Panic had set in. The wedding was 10 days away. At precisely 4:55, there was a commotion in the lobby. James arrived with Melissa and both sets of parents. It was time. I had my assistant escort them to my private conference room, not my office. This was a business dispute. When I entered 5 minutes later, the tension was palpable. Melissa was red-faced, tearing up. Eleanor looked apoplectic. My parents appeared confused and distressed. And James, my beloved brother, looked like a stranger, his face a mask of anger and embarrassment. What the hell do you think you are doing? He demanded. I remained standing. Enforcing the terms of our contract, I replied calmly. And standing up for myself, finally. Melissa's father, Howard Blake, stepped forward, a large man accustomed to intimidation. This is outrageous. We have a binding agreement. You cannot simply cancel a wedding with 10 days' notice. I met his gaze. Actually, I can. Section 12 of the venue contract clearly states that the Sapphire Grand reserves the right to cancel any event that violates our ethical standards or poses a reputational risk to our establishment. Ethical standards? Eleanor scoffed. What nonsense is this? Attempting to exclude the venue owner from an event while retaining her financial contribution constitutes fraud, I stated. That violates both ethical standards and potentially the law. We did not exclude you, Melissa protested, tears streaming. We simply revised the guest list. By removing only me, I pointed out. After accepting my $65,000 contribution, my mother stepped forward. Natalie, what is going on? Why would you not be invited to your own brother's wedding? I looked at James, giving him an opportunity to explain. He avoided my gaze. Perhaps James or Melissa would like to explain their reasoning? I suggested. This is a misunderstanding, James finally mumbled, his voice lacking conviction. Victoria must have confused the instructions. Victoria Hayes, quietly observing, straightened. I followed Miss Blake's instructions exactly as they were given to me. I was told to inform Miss Warren that her invitation had been rescinded, but that the deposit would be retained. Eleanor waved her hand dismissively. This is ridiculous. So, there was a miscommunication about the guest list. It happens with large events. That is no reason to threaten the entire wedding. This was not a miscommunication, I said firmly. This was a deliberate decision to exclude me while keeping my money. You offered that money as a gift, Melissa snapped, dropping all pretense of civility. Gifts do not come with conditions. Actually, they often do, I countered. Especially when the gift is a business transaction with a signed contract. Howard Blake pulled out his phone. This is absurd. I am calling our attorney right now. We will see you for breach of contract. You are welcome to do that, I replied. But the contract is quite clear about my right to cancel under these circumstances. Additionally, I have documentary evidence of the bride's intent to defraud me by accepting my financial contribution while planning to exclude me from the event. That is a serious accusation, Howard growled. Yes, it is, I agreed. Almost as serious as telling your daughter it is acceptable to take $65,000 from someone and then ban them from the event they funded. My father, uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke. James, is this true? Did you agree to exclude your sister from your wedding? James looked trapped, his eyes darting between Melissa and me. It is complicated, he muttered. It is actually quite simple, I said, feeling a strange calm despite the chaos. Either I am welcome at my brother's wedding as a full and respected family member, or there will be no wedding at the Sapphire Grand. Melissa burst into fresh tears. You cannot do this. Everything is arranged. Our guests are arriving from Europe next week. I understand. It is inconvenient, I acknowledged, but so is discovering that your only sibling has decided you are not good enough to attend his wedding despite your generous contribution. Eleanor turned to James. This is ridiculous. Call her bluff. We can find another venue. I smiled thinly. With 10 days' notice in the height of wedding season, that seems unlikely, but you are welcome to try. Of course, you would forfeit the deposit here, and most other venues will require full payment up front for such a last-minute booking. The color drained from Melissa's face. Daddy, do something. Howard Blake looked thoughtful. Perhaps we can come to some arrangement. What exactly do you want, Miss Warren? Respect, I said simply. A sincere apology and acknowledgement that what you plan to do is wrong, and a guarantee that I will be treated as the family that I am at this event. This is extortion, Eleanor hissed. No, I corrected her. This is a boundary. I have spent months accommodating every demand, absorbing every slight, and financing a significant portion of this wedding. In return, I have been treated with contempt and ultimately excluded entirely. That ends today. My mother moved to stand beside me, surprising everyone. I agree with Natalie. What you were planning is shameful, James. I raised you better than this. James finally looked up, a mix of shame and defiance on his face. You do not understand the pressure I have been under. I understand perfectly, I replied. You have been so desperate to impress Melissa and her family that you were willing to betray the sister who has always been there for you. The sister who helped put you through trade school, who celebrated every success and supported you through every failure. Something in my words seemed to penetrate the fog he had been living in. For the first time in months, I saw a glimmer of the real James in his eyes. I never wanted to hurt you, Nat, he said quietly. Yet you were willing to ban me from your wedding while keeping my money, I pointed out. How did you think that would make me feel? I thought, he hesitated, I thought you would understand that sometimes sacrifices have to be made for the bigger picture. And I was the sacrifice? I asked, my voice breaking slightly despite my resolve. James had no answer. Howard Blake cleared his throat. Let us be practical about this, Miss Warren. If we agree to include you in the wedding as requested, will you allow the event to proceed as planned? That depends, I said, turning to James. Is that what you want, James? Am I just an obligation to be tolerated, or do you actually want your only sister at your wedding? The room fell silent. This was the moment of truth. James looked at Melissa, then at me, then down at his hands. I want you there, Nat, he said finally. I always did. I just got caught up in everything. The planning, the expectations, the pressure to make everything perfect. Perfect for whom? I asked softly. He had no answer for that either. Melissa stomped her foot. This is my wedding. I should decide who attends. It is our wedding, James corrected her, seeming to find his voice at last. And Natalie is my sister. She should be there. She deserves to be there. The look Melissa gave him was venomous. After this stunt, you still want her there? She just threatened to ruin our entire wedding. After you tried to exclude her while keeping her money, James countered, standing a little straighter. Think about that, Melissa. How would you feel if someone did that to you? For perhaps the first time since I'd met her, Melissa seemed genuinely speechless. Here is what is going to happen, I said, addressing the room. I will allow the wedding to proceed as planned with the following conditions. First, I will receive a formal written apology from the bride and groom for the attempt to exclude me. Second, I will be treated with the respect due to a family member and business owner throughout all wedding events. Third, my $65,000 contribution will be acknowledged in the wedding program as a gift from a loving sister, not simply as a venue discount. Howard Blake nodded thoughtfully. Those terms seem reasonable given the circumstances. Father, Melissa protested. Enough, Melissa, he said firmly. Miss Warren has us over a barrel, and you know it. More importantly, she is right. What you and your mother planned was inappropriate and potentially illegal. We are fortunate she is willing to work with us at all. Eleanor looked as if she had swallowed something sour, but remained silent. My parents exchanged glances. Do we have an agreement? I asked, looking directly at James. After a moment's hesitation, he nodded. Yes, he said, and Nat, I am sorry. I should have never let things get this far. It was a start, but I knew we had a long way to go to rebuild the trust. Still, for the first time in months, I felt like I might eventually get my brother back. Then the wedding will proceed as scheduled, I said, opening the conference room door. Victoria will coordinate with my staff on the final details. As they filed out, James lingered. When we were alone, he turned to me, tears in his eyes. I cannot believe I just did that, he said, half laughing, half crying. Did you see their faces? I did, I confirmed, handing him a glass of water. That was quite an exit. I am going to pay for it financially and socially, he acknowledged. But the moment the minister asked that question, I knew I could not go through with it. All I could think about was how Melissa and her mother treated you, how they were willing to exclude you while taking your money. And I realized that if I married her, I would be endorsing that behavior. I would be becoming one of them. What will you do now? I asked. He shrugged, looking suddenly lighter. Go back to my apartment, return to work, start over. It will be embarrassing for a while, but at least I will be living authentically. I squeezed his hand. I am proud of you, James. That took real courage. I learned it from my little sister, he said with a warm smile. The hotel girl who built an empire while staying true to herself. In the following days, James faced the fallout. The Blakes demanded repayment, which he agreed to. Melissa's friends spread unkind rumors, but his true friends stood by him. As for me, I had my brother back, and that was worth more than any business deal. The Sapphire Grand's reputation didn't suffer. In fact, Victoria Hayes told me my handling of the situation earned respect. 1 month after the non-wedding, James and I resumed our Sunday brunches. He looked more like himself than he had in years. I got a call from Eleanor Blake yesterday, he mentioned casually. She wanted to let me know that Melissa is dating a hedge fund manager now. Apparently, they met at a charity gala 2 weeks after our wedding was supposed to happen. That was fast, I remarked. James laughed. I'm not surprised. I think I was always more of an accessory than a partner to her. The successful contractor with the rugged good looks who could be molded into an acceptable society husband. And now I am dating someone new, too, he admitted with a sheepish smile. Remember Sarah from the city planning office? We always got along when I was submitting permits. She called to check on me after hearing about the wedding, and we ended up talking for hours. Sarah is wonderful, I said sincerely. Smart, kind, and she values you for who you actually are. That makes all the difference. James agreed. She wants to meet you properly, by the way. I told her all about my amazing sister who saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life. I'd love that, I said, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the summer sunshine. The wounds caused by Melissa and her family would take time to fully heal, but James and I were rebuilding our bond, stronger and wiser than before. Sometimes it takes nearly losing someone to realize how valuable they truly are. 6 months after the wedding that never was, I sat in my office at the Sapphire Grand. Bookings were at an all-time high. A knock interrupted my concentration. Anthony, my hotel manager, had a strange expression. Melissa Blake is in the lobby, he announced. She's asking to speak with you. I set down my pen. Melissa? Did she say what this is about? No, but she seems different, less imperial, if you know what I mean. Curiosity got the better of me. Send her up. When Melissa entered, I barely recognized her. Gone was the perfectly coiffed society princess. This Melissa wore simple jeans, a sweater, minimal makeup. Her hair was pulled back. Thank you for seeing me, she said, her voice lacking the entitled edge. "I know this must be unexpected. Please have a seat," I offered. "What can I do for you?" Melissa sat, hands folded nervously. "I came to apologize properly this time, not with some lawyer-drafted statement." I raised an eyebrow, silent. "What I did to you was inexcusable," she admitted. "Trying to exclude you from James' wedding while keeping your money was not just rude, it was cruel and potentially criminal. I was so caught up in creating the perfect society wedding that I lost sight of basic human decency." "What brought on this revelation?" I asked, genuinely curious. She sighed. "After James left me at the altar, I was angry and humiliated. I blamed everyone but myself. I quickly started dating Curtis, a hedge fund manager my mother introduced me to, thinking I could just replace James and move on." "I heard about that," I acknowledged. "Curtis proposed after just 6 weeks," Melissa continued. "My mother was thrilled. His family has even more money than we do. But then I overheard him talking to his friends about me." Her voice cracked. "He said I was high maintenance, but good arm candy for client meetings. He said he could train me to be the perfect corporate wife." "That sounds painful," I said, feeling an unexpected twinge of sympathy. "It was a wake-up call," she admitted. "For the first time, I saw myself through someone else's eyes, and I did not like what I saw. I broke off the engagement and started therapy. My mother was furious, but my father supported my decision, surprisingly. Howard seemed to have more self-awareness than Eleanor, I observed." Melissa nodded. "Dad pulled me aside after the therapy announcement and told me something I will never forget. He said, 'Melissa, I indulged your mother's social climbing because I thought it made her happy, but it turned her into someone I barely recognize, and now it is doing the same to you.'" "Powerful words," I murmured. "It has been a difficult few months of self-examination," she continued. "I have had to confront some ugly truths about myself and how I treated people, especially you and James. The therapist helped me see that my behavior stemmed from deep insecurity. Despite all the privilege I grew up with, I never felt good enough on my own merits." I studied her closely. To my surprise, I found no signs of manipulation. "I do not expect forgiveness," Melissa said, meeting my gaze. "I just wanted you to know that I recognize the harm I caused, and I am working to become a better person." "I appreciate that," I said carefully. "Genuine apologies are rare." "There is one more thing," she added, reaching into her purse. "This is for you." She handed me an envelope. Inside was a cashier's check for $65,000. "Your deposit," she explained. "It should have been returned to you immediately after the wedding was canceled. It was wrong of me to try to keep it." I stared at the check, surprised. "Thank you. This is unexpected." "It is the right thing to do," she said simply, standing to leave. That is all I wanted to say. "Thank you for seeing me." As she turned, I found myself asking, "Have you spoken to James?" She paused at the door. "No. I thought about reaching out, but I decided that would be selfish. He seems happy with Sarah from what I have heard. He deserves that happiness without me complicating things." With that, she was gone, leaving me to ponder the strange encounter. People could change, it seemed, if they were willing to face their mistakes honestly. That evening, I met James and Sarah for dinner at my newest hotel property. They were glowing. Sarah was warm, intelligent, and treated the staff with genuine kindness. "You will never guess who came to see me today," I told James over dessert. When I recounted Melissa's visit and apology, his eyes widened. "Melissa Blake admitted she was wrong and returned the money voluntarily? Are you sure it was really her and not an imposter?" I laughed. "It was her, though a very different version from the woman you almost married." James shook his head in wonder. "People can surprise you, I guess, though I am grateful every day that I did not go through with the wedding." Sarah squeezed his hand affectionately. "So am I, selfishly." The whole experience taught me something important, I reflected. For years, I defined success by my business achievements. I worked endless hours building the Sapphire brand, sometimes at the expense of personal relationships. I took pride in being self-sufficient, never needing to ask for help. "You have always been the strong one," James agreed. "But strength is not about handling everything alone," I continued. "Real strength is knowing when to stand up for yourself, when to set boundaries, and when to walk away from situations that diminish your worth." If I had not found the courage to confront you and Melissa about the wedding exclusion, I might still be letting people take advantage of my generosity while treating me as less than. I am sorry I put you in that position, James said quietly. We both learned from it, I assured him. And our relationship is stronger for having weathered that storm. In the months that followed, I made changes in both my personal and professional life. I started volunteering with a mentorship program for young women entrepreneurs, sharing not just business advice, but lessons about self-worth and healthy boundaries. I reconnected with old friends. James and I instituted a strict no work talk policy for our Sunday brunches. Perhaps most surprisingly, I developed a cordial relationship with Howard Blake. He confided that my handling of the wedding situation had earned his respect. I built my car dealership empire by recognizing talent and integrity, he told me. You demonstrated both. Eleanor and Melissa may have wealth and social connections, but you have something more valuable: character. The $65,000 check from Melissa went into a special fund I created, the True Love, True Values Grant, providing venue and catering for couples who demonstrated authentic commitment. As for my brother, he and Sarah became engaged a year after the non-wedding disaster. They planned a simple ceremony in a garden. When James asked me to be his best woman, I accepted with tears of joy. On the morning of his wedding, as I helped him straighten his tie, James looked at me with gratitude in his eyes. You saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life, he said. Not just by stopping the wedding with Melissa, but by reminding me of who I really am and what actually matters. That is what family does, I replied, echoing the words I had spoken during our confrontation. The real kind, not the kind that only values status and appearances. The lesson I learned through that painful experience was profound. True self-worth comes not from what you accomplish or who accepts you, but from honoring your own values and refusing to compromise them for approval or advantage. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and others is to say no when someone tries to diminish your worth. My path to healing began with that difficult stand, continued through rebuilding authentic connections, and led to a life richer in meaning than I could have imagined. In standing up for myself, I discovered that self-respect is the foundation upon which all meaningful relationships must be built. You cannot control how others treat you, but you always have the power to decide what treatment you will accept. Sometimes, saying no is the first step towards saying yes to the life you truly deserve.